Hello. So, in this video, I want to talk about what the original European shamanism was and how we can kind of tell what it was by looking at like movements of different people into Europe. And I was like up all last 2 nights looking really into this, researching into all like, going into ancestry measured by genetic clusters and looking at movements of people into Europe in like prehistory and stuff. And I came to like a conclusion, and basically the first like what we'd call Homo Sapiens to come into Europe were the Western hunter-gatherers who were dark melanated people, meaning dark-skinned people. They had dark hair as well, but all of them had blue eyes. And you can't see them now, but I have blue eyes, and so if you carry the blue eyes, then you're carrying that Western hunter-gatherer genetics, which was the original indigenous European genetics. And these people came into a lot of conflict with the Neanderthals. And the Neanderthals, like I've said in previous videos, were the dwarfs, or the Druga. And they had a lot of conflict with them as well, because the Homo sapiens are alpha, well, light alpha, if you want to put it that way, because once we were just alpha, but then when the split happened, there came the light elves and the dark elves. And the light elves are us Homo sapiens of any race, and the dark elves are the jinn, or the jinni, the jinn. Now, they live in the unseen realm, or just operating just outside visible light and in the dark corners of the world. But getting beyond that, if you just take it back to, so these Western hunter-gatherers who came in, they came in about roughly 45,000 years ago into Europe. But they first mainly like occupied only southern Europe and not northern Europe, because that place had an ice sheet on it, a huge ice sheet due to the ice ages and stuff. And they survived through the ice ages, and this is the reason why I think we have red melanin. Red melanin, us white Europeans have red melanin, just because it came about from surviving the ice age and mastering the element of fire. If you can imagine, like if you're mastering that element of fire for thousands and thousands of years, your melanin would become entrenched in that and become a part of that. So what happened after that was, so they basically occupied the whole of northern Europe, and well, the whole of Europe basically. And then this new group called the Neolithic Farmers came in, and I'll just check which so they came in about, I think, yeah, so they came in about 9,000 to 8,000 years ago. And these are Neolithic farmers who built built the megaliths, and they brought farming, agriculture, and domesticated animals to Europe. This was the Vanir consciousness coming in, and it came in via the land of Kemet or Egypt, because Kemet, it was the original seed for the Atlantean consciousness, or the Vanir consciousness. You understand what I'm saying? Atlantis was never a place; it was an idea. And so all the places in Europe where you see megaliths and megalithic structures is where the Atlantis in Europe was, the European version of Atlantis. So Atlantis spread right from Kemet into Europe and spread to other parts of the world, and this is what I call the Vanir consciousness, or the Atlantean consciousness, and kind of elevated humanity to another level of another level or a way of doing things. So, but they mainly occupied southern and western Europe, and didn't actually reach much of northern Europe, where Scandinavia and the Baltic regions is. And this is where the Western European hunter-gatherers more stayed, and that they actually kept on being hunter-gatherers for quite a long period of time. They did adopt the Vanir or Atlantean way of farming and agriculture and stuff for periods of time, but they kind of went out of that, went back to hunter-gathering, and kind of went back in and out of it. So they kind of kept the what you'd call the original shamanic tradition alive in that region, and preserved it, basically. So what you had after that was, in about 6,000 to 5,000 years ago, you had the Indo-Europeans come in. Now, these Indo-Europeans, what I call the Asia or Aryan consciousness coming into Europe, and they came right out of the Caucasus Mountains. And these people descended from the North Eurasian hunter-gatherers, who basically used to hunt mammoths and megafauna up in the northern regions of Asia. And they actually have, I think they had most of the actual Neanderthal DNA, because if you look at them, they do look very, they do have very Neanderthal features. And so, and they brought on they're the ones who introduced horseback riding, so they were named horsemen, and they also created the chariot, the war chariot, and were very high in warfare technology and strategy. And they also brought on the idea of building a fortress around the village or town where you lived. And so they were more, and they're very warlike as well, and they're very into conquest, and they very strong patriarchal societies that they developed. And so they came in, but they mixed in with obviously the Atlanteans or the Vanir Neolithic farmers, but they also mixed in with the Western the light alpha or the Western hunter-gatherers, which is by the way, the light alpha is also the Lemurian consciousness. That's a whole other thing I'll get into another time, but I'm just trying to help people understand that the different waves of different migrations that came into Europe is what built up the Europeans modern Europeans as we know them today. But anyway, but what we call the Nordic Baltic languages And I'm not talking about the Germanic and Slavic languages. You see, the Germanic and Slavic languages are later offshoots of the original Nordic Baltic language. Now, the Nordic Baltic language is actually, even though it is Indo-European, it actually has a lot of words and language structure, what's in there, which is actually related to what the language of the original Europeans, the Western hunter-gatherers. So the shamanic tradition was of Europe. The true shamanic tradition was actually best preserved up there, best preserved in the Scandinavia and Baltic regions. This is what I would kind of want to revive, basically, and I am reviving it at the moment. I do practice it. It's just I haven't yet got all the pieces together in terms of linguistic understanding of it, and this is taking me more of an interest into looking into the Nordic and Baltic languages. You see, the runes are actually predate the Indo-European invasions. So the runes, though there were Indo-European developments made on the runes and Indo-European influences, it did predate the Indo-Europeans. And it came from that region, the Scandinavia and Baltic regions. And you also have to remember that the Baltic region was the last region to be Christianized, and it was only Christianized about 500 or 600 years ago. And if you look into where the Baltic peoples today, they are a lot more in touch with their roots and their ancestral traditions than, say, other European countries are. And this is because that there hasn't been so overlaid with rootlessness over that place. And I think this is really kind of like a big step to me in understanding linguistics and language and how that relates to my own consciousness and stuff, because the problem is now we speak the modern English language. And I'm not talking about the Englic language, which is Old English. There's a difference between Englic and English. Remember, anything of ish at the end of it means to some extent. You are English. So this is why you have Spanish and Danish and and Jewish and all these kind of. The ish means you are to some extent, but you're not. It's it to some extent, but you're not purely it. And so when Englic is the Old Anglo-Saxon. So when you're speaking English, you're speaking a language which isn't even the purity of that language. You see, Englic is actually a purely Germanic language. English has Latin and French influences in it as well. And it's a very kind of modern and kind of quite flat language. It has words missing to it that actually make you feel the meaning of that word. Other languages are far more ancient, that's the thing. And they have so when you say a word, it kind of invokes emotions a more potent emotion within you and has a more magical aspect to it. And when I say this, I'm not trying to degrade my Anglo-Saxon ancestors in any way. I'm just trying to say what it is, and originally Anglo-Saxons didn't, like I just said, didn't speak the modern English language we have now, which is not really a Germanic language. It's a hybrid language, and you even get this in like for example in here in Britain you have people speaking Welsh, but what they don't understand is Welsh is not a, because I'm not even going to use the term Celtic because that was a term made up 300 years ago, and is really a false term. But Gaelic. What you got to understand is that Welsh is a combination of the Gaelic language, which only can be now found in Ireland today, and Roman. This is the reason why, is because some Gaelic people here in Britain, who actually immigrated into Britain from the Alpine Mountains. I think they were in Ireland before that, but they're definitely one of those. They immigrated to Britain, the Alpine Mountains, and they were under Roman occupation at that time, so they're working for the Romans. And so basically their language, they were culturally Roman. So they basically had their language mixed, and that's what came out of the origins of the Welsh language. It's actually a Roman, and it's probably more Roman than it is actually Gaelic. But yeah, so I'm trying to basically explain like how we are so overlaid with hybridizations and contaminations, and what I'm trying to get back is get back to the pure and the original of what was there. And what I've been looking up is that there were 12 original race lines, which came out of Africa. I think it was somewhere East Africa, around where I think Kenya and Sudan are, or something like that. About 200,000 years ago, something like that. And they migrated out to the different parts of the world. Some of them migrated out to different parts of Africa. Some migrated out to, like I said, Europe. This is just one of the original 12 race lines, and you have the others what migrated out to the other parts of the world. And you also had the 4 tablets, which are the 4 tablets of the 4 elements, which are and when these 4 tablets are going to eventually be combined, this is going to basically reveal the original human template. And one of them is here in Europe, and I think it was preserved in the Scandinavian Balkan region, because that's the pure European spirituality was preserved there. And that was one of the 4 tablets, the tablet of fire. And I think the other 2, I think of in the Americas it was in the Mayan, kept preserved by the Mayans. I think in the East it was preserved by Asia it was preserved by the Chinese, and I think I'm not sure, but I think in Africa it was preserved in Kemet. So I think these 4 tablets are the secrets to unlocking the true universal tree of life. And I've personally been trying to myself connect different parts of the 3 known tablets at the moment to construct the true tree of life, universal tree of life, but that's a whole other thing. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to find out what the original European language was before the Indo-Europeans came in and into Scandinavia, because they were speaking something there. They weren't just not speaking anything. They were obviously had their own language there, and the closest thing I can find is the original Nordic and the original Baltic languages, which are really just if you take it back to its origin, are really the same thing. And so, yeah, that's what I've really been, researching into for the past 2 days now, and really having to look back into far back into prehistory, but and not just like looking at population genetics and looking at like genetic mapping, looking at like migrations, and archaeological finds and stuff like that, and it just goes, it's taken me, I mean, it's incredibly interesting, but it took me like just time to look into and stuff to really kind of like find the truth to all of this. And I can understand it's like very hard work to look into this stuff, but I have a responsibility as a Vikhi shaman to kind of bring this knowledge to the forefront, because it can't stay hidden anymore. We're at a time now where the forces that have been, trying to spiritually darken the world, they're done now. They're fading away, and the ones that are going to bring this these hidden secrets, this hidden knowledge out to the world, have a big responsibility on their hands, because we're the ones who are going to set the foundations for what is going to be the bringing the light of this knowledge to the world. And this spans to people of, I don't really care what race you are, because I know that in every single race here on the planet there is people like me who are doing the same for their own people, and we are the lighting the torches. We are the ones holding the torch, and this is why we have a responsibility. And we are the way showers for mankind in that respect, because at the moment humanity is not in a good place at all, and I know that they are completely lost, spiritually and in all other kinds of ways as well. They're just it's the soul of humanity is in a very has been in a very dark place for a very long time, and we're just coming out of that now. And there's nothing any force can do to kind of like stop that consciousness from evolving. It's going to happen, and people are clinging on to these old, crusty, ways of thinking about things that are going to have to start, looking more within themselves, deep within themselves. I mean, and try and find ways to evolve, basically. And it's hard to evolve when your memory of everything is being really like fucked with by what you've been taught through through the system you've been born into, whether it's through a religious or secular way of looking at it, doesn't matter, because it's both pretty much the same fucking thing as far as I'm concerned. And at the moment, we're seeing all these old institutions burn away, and to the people who are like, teaching people wherever they are, wherever it be in, the in any like walk of life, like you now have a responsibility to kind of be careful of what you're teaching, and it is your form of teaching in line with what the truth is, or is it in line with something trying to distort that? Because I can tell you now, there's a lot of priests in the churches, a lot of new age fucking gurus, and a lot of academics and scientists saying a lot of shit at the moment, and they're there to keep you in a fucking box, and well, that box is going to have to open eventually, so get fucking used to it. So that's what I really want to say for now, and bye.